Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
So easy. We've been doing the rounds of Double Ripple. It's pretty epic when you have your own podcast. You can promote your own shit. It's pretty epic. So one day, Rich and I looked at each other pretty much at the same time. I was like, oh, yeah, we need to get Eric on here to talk about Double Ripple and paper clips. And, you know, we've had some time to remove ourselves from the making of the films and everything that goes into that, and then people viewing them. So 2 months out of releasing the films and what have you, what are your thoughts if you go back to look at paper clips, look at Double Ripple? What are your thoughts like right now, having some distance between the projects?
I'm incredibly proud of everything that we accomplished and the time frames that we did and the quality of work we produced, especially given the amount of people we had. And I'm also really proud of all of the things that we've seen that we know can be improved upon, because that's the proof that we're growing as people and as an artist.
Where did you get the inspiration for doing paper clips? Because I thought it was quite hilarious. You know, Ben, he crushed it. We talked to him about it, and yeah, it was a good little when it finally made its way across my plate. It was a good little break in the day, and it definitely made me laugh out loud a few times. Where did you get that inspiration from, or where were you pulling that from?
So everything in paper clips was a story that happened to me while I was working at Office Max. Each story is embellished. Like, a lot of the events have been made a little more extreme. I combined characters, changed names, changed genders of characters, all that stuff. But the fundamental core of each scene comes from something that actually happened.
So having that kind of being in the moment of something crazy going on and thinking, oh, this is funny, this might translate really funny to being on screen. What was the maybe disconnect, or maybe some things you had to add or fluff to certain things? Did stuff translate exactly how it happened into, oh, this is funny, or did you have to kind of twist some stuff, add some stuff, maybe exaggerate some stuff?
So a lot of what I did as far as changing in that sense was kind of trying to make the events happen closer together and having some simultaneous, that kind of thing. Or like, there's a gag with the laminator burning the whole place down, or at least setting the fire alarm off, which I had left the laminator on overnight, but there were no big fires. The store didn't burn down, and that's not funny. It's not funny to have someone almost have something go wrong. It's only funny if something does go wrong. So I had to embellish that. And similarly, other scenes, there's one crazy thing happening, but that on its own isn't enough to really get the laughs. So you put something else happening at the same time, even though these two events might have been 2 years apart in my actual life. If you put them together, it just makes both funnier.
So did the manager really make out with one of the clerks?
Yeah, one of our lower level managers was actually one of the people who worked in our print center. Those two were together for about a month, and we were pretty sure it wasn't a serious thing because they broke up. One of them quit her job, and then the manager was still there for 6 months, but he was depressed the whole time. It's kind of hilarious.
Well, there you go for the sequel, bro. You just wrote it. So I know you said you combined characters, and I kind of know your answer because we spoke on this, but was it hard for you to maybe use certain situations and know, hey, maybe someone's going to see this at some point? And what was certain people's reactions that maybe you worked with that might have been one of those people? Was there any adverse effects to using some of these characters, or any negative effects?
So I was worried about that ahead of time, and it kind of just conveniently lined up for leaving my job there, so there couldn't really be any major consequences for it. I did end up sending most of my coworkers the final thing, and some of them, even who weren't part of the stories or who weren't portrayed negatively in the film, kind of thought like they took it personally that it was making fun of their job, which is ridiculous in my opinion. Like, have a sense of humor, but that was kind of a shock to me, that some of my friends, or at least that's how I had viewed them, were offended by my piece when it wasn't making fun of them. And then we also had Haven in the film, who was playing himself basically, and I feel like I was really hard on his character, making fun of him, and he still took that with grace and took it in stride and did a great job, and I really appreciate that from him.
Was he just a friend from work, or did you know him from school?
Yeah, he was a friend from work who had done theater before, so I knew he was interested in acting, and I was like, "I wrote this part kind of about you. Do you want to play yourself?" And he said, "Yeah, that sounds fun." He actually, I can say this now because he doesn't work there anymore. He called out of work sick that day to come be on set with us.
Haven's one of those cats, and you and I, we kind of magnetize towards certain people, and kind of, we're nichey. And when he showed up on set, I was like, this dude vibes. That he gets along, and he was an NPC for us on Double Ripple. He did great work, and it's one of those things where, oh, all right, here's someone hopefully we can use going down the road. But that was great cat, right? You couldn't have casted him better for himself.
Yeah, especially out of like the auditions we got were kind of, part of it was our fault for the fact that we put out calls for only certain characters, so we didn't get quite the range that specifically for my film that I would have ended up needing to cast everybody. So I had to kind of luck into, like, we used Jimmy because that was not that you did a
I was
bad job,
there.
but that was our option at that point. And kind of Haven was the same thing, but he was so perfect for the role. It kind of just all worked out lucky in our favor.
And you were in and out, right? At on set
2 days.
2 days.
Yeah, yeah, we had scheduled for 3 days, but thanks to Cassandra being so gung ho, our talent being just focused the whole time whenever they were on screen, Jimmy doing a good job, and our PAs being super helpful, we were able to get in and out in 2 days. I wouldn't ever go ahead of schedule like that again, because all of that time that we didn't use could have allowed us to, like, we didn't have a production designer, so there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that I didn't control for because there was no one whose job was to control for that. That I think that's the biggest thing I could really do to improve that film, would have been to take more time with paying attention to what the heck's going on in the store, because we had the ability to move whatever we wanted as long as we put it back, and we didn't really take advantage of that ever.
Did you think to ask? Did you try to go directly to Office Space or Office Max and see if they would let you use that facility for a day or two?
That was a constant argument between the two of us.
I did eventually ask my store manager, and she said she didn't have permission to do that, and so I had to go through corporate. And I sent an email to a guy who was in like media relations or something, and he said that I had to pay 15 grand for the day to
What?
cover what the store makes. And I know for a fact that the store did not make 15
Never.
grand a day.
Not even during a school sale, back to school sale.
No, that's like the best day that we had there ever.
A
Was
hell of a lot
15
of
grand.
paper.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of
Sharpies aren't that
Bluetooth,
much.
a lot of Bluetooth mouses getting bought.
Well, and the other thing was I'd asked for like at night when it wasn't there, and they still wanted us to like cover it. It seemed to me like they just didn't want to cooperate with it, so they just made it go away by putting a dollar figure I couldn't afford.
It's usually what they do.
Yeah, I think you had a really good point, Eric, about using the time allotted, because I know you and I had that mindset of let's run and gun, let's get this. And I think going in, if you have those 3 days blocked out, you need to kind of have that mindset. We're using those 3 days. And I think you and I, as filmmakers, need to be okay with stuff maybe going past those 3 days and using that full extent. And I don't know, this is maybe something that's coming to my head as we're talking, but I think that's where dailies come in, and maybe watching dailies between day 1 and day 2, and you pick up on things. I don't know. What do you think about that? How to better use that time? What are some of the things you learned from that you would do differently?
I think our shooting schedule was we didn't really have one for that. Like, I knew what order we were going in, but I didn't have here's when we're going to do this, here's how long it's going to take. Partly because I didn't have the context for how long things should take, how long things can take, any of that. So I was thinking, why would I waste time estimating when I don't know how to estimate this? And I think if we had a schedule and we saw exactly how far schedule we were running, that would kind of be a signal to, hey, slow down, we can pay more attention to what's going on, do a more thorough, more detailed job. I think some of it was also just the experience of having done that and seeing, like, oh, there's a tape roll in the background of that shot. That's what we need to look for. Like, that experience of having done that and had it show up on the big screen like that, I think might be something, at least for me personally, I needed to see that before I knew to look for that. As far as dailies, I think that's a way that you can kind of get that same experience without having to show it to a million people and have your film have that in the final shot. Like, you can see everything that happened that day. Although I also worry that, like, after a day of filming, am I so exhausted that I wouldn't see that stuff anyway? So I'm not sure.
Well, do you think too? It's maybe one of those things where going forward, you have someone else do it, right? Just someone else put an eye on it and look for stuff like that. Maybe they don't know the story, but they can kind of just scour the frame and see what's going on. I don't know. Because you make a great point. How much does it suck? You have a great shot and then you see a boom pole or, a water bottle or something like that. And then you got to figure out a way in post to do it.
Well, if we had larger crews, for my film, we would have benefited most from a proper production designer, someone whose job was there entirely to pay attention to the set and what's on set. And honestly, I wish I had put you in that, although you're a great AD too. But I think that's also one of your big skills, is to pay attention to, like, oh, that shirt doesn't really fit what's going on in the shot and it's kind of distracting. Let's move it, that kind of thing. I think you would have been really great with that. As far as your film, what we really needed, I mean, we kind of had someone in this role, kind of not, is a script supervisor. Like Addie in our classes, when I've seen her working, Addie DeMarco, she does
Shout
a
out
great
Daddy
job.
DeMarco.
Yeah, shout out here. You do a great job of paying attention to those things like the boom pole, taking notes of those and letting the director know. So you get two benefits there. One, the editor knows ahead of time which takes are going to have that. And two, if that's a problem, the director knows, hey, we need to get another take so that you can have one that's clean.
One thing I just wanted to kind of shout out, and we didn't have that on the set at all, but we had our small 4 crew on Double Ripple did a good job of paying attention to that stuff, because there were some boom poles and stuff that we knew prior that we were going to have to mess with, and things like that, and stuff that just was unavoidable with the amount of hands that we had. That said, you're 100% right. Having that continuity and someone keeping an eye on it, because when you're directing or cinematographer, you have certain things you're worrying about and considering. So just to have those extra eyeballs. That said, I think we did a really good job with small crews and kind of showed ourselves we can get stuff done with small crews. We just need to know what to emphasize a little bit more.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Monotony, I feel like, was kind of the same thing for us, but it was such a controlled shoot where we had so many variables just taken care of so they weren't an issue, that, like, things went super smoothly because of that. And then when we dropped ourselves into these more kind of out there projects where there was less in our control, I think that's when we got to see the gaps in our skill and where we really, really thrive.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think monotony was definitely practice, right? It was, here's the drawing, now you got to connect the dots. We proved that we connect the dots, and then here we had a little bit of a grander vision, and then we kind of saw the pitfalls of when that grander vision might fall through, and you learned how to fix it in post, or how to cut it or use something else. So I think, like you said, not only is making it and being on set crucial to your learning as a film student or filmmaker, but learning how to adjust and get better at those mistakes you made is all part of the learning process as well.
So, Eric, you had experience in this sort of stuff coming into UC Denver, right? Or at
Yeah,
least a
I
little
had
bit.
done in middle school we had some like film classes, but it's middle school, so it's kind of like dick around with the camera for an hour class
Mhm.
or whatever. And then high school was a little more involved. The projects were, we had two teachers, and one of them was total chaos, and as a result, the class was total chaos all 4 years. So I learned a lot of random technical things, but as far as like any of the proper professional how to really put a film together. Here's steps A, B, C, D, E. Here's scheduling. Here's how to find actors, any of that stuff, or proper lighting. There was just a lot of stuff that got missed. Like they really harped on sound. So I knew sound. And editing, we got taught editing 6 times in those 4 years. So I knew editing pretty well coming in. But there's lots of these gaps, and CU Denver has done a really good job of like making sure every student goes through all these classes that are different things, different interest areas. Like we have a lighting class, a cinematography class, sound, and each of those might not be as involved as you would want if you were looking for just that field. But as far as a general education where you kind of understand everything, so you can at least tell when other people are good for the job or not, it's done a great job of like teaching those fundamentals.
What aspect of it, the process, is your favorite? Like, where would do you see yourself focusing?
I really like anything post. So assembling the footage to all the way at the end with effects and color. Um, but also on set, I kind of like keeping everything organized. Directing's really fun, but I just don't see myself kind of getting into that career path because it's long and hard, and there's a lot of like PA work at the beginning and a lot of kissing ass that I don't know if I want to do.
Seems to like a lot of, at least paying attention as a become an adult. Seems like a lot of actors get into like the other side of the camera, the production side, be it as producers or directors.
Yeah, I think that the reason for that is partly because they've got the connections, so they know people. And I also think that the skill set for acting and directing are very similar because there's a lot of like kind of working your actors with, if somebody is really nervous on camera and the scene doesn't require them to be nervous, going in there and telling them, hey, you look nervous is going to freak them out more and they're going to do a worse job. So, what you have to do is tell them, hey, that was great. You're doing a good job. Just keep doing exactly what you've been doing, and that'll help them relax. And you have to do this convincingly, or else it's not going to work. But helping that person relax is kind of your job as director in that moment. So, there's all these little kind of acting moments as a director that you have to engage in.
Rich brought up that you had some experience coming into CU Denver because of high school, right? Was there, and you said CU Denver had allowed you to fill those gaps. What is the biggest gaps that you've filled? And did you get punched in the face? Meaning, did you think you knew everything coming in, or were you aware that you had a lot of gaps because of the way you learned in high school? Or did you think, oh, I had this stuff in high school, I know it all?
I knew that like I could have written the textbook, like that voice and vision textbook. I have it somewhere right here, but like I could have rewritten that textbook because I knew all these terms, and I could have explained like when you see something in a film, I can tell you, oh, it's this kind of shot, this angle, they're using this type of lighting. But what I couldn't do is go out there with 3 lights and a camera and tell actors what to do, and like point those lights so they look the way I wanted, and set up the camera settings so that it would be ideal. Like I had the base that you get that freshman year of here's all the terms, here you can watch movies with a critical eye. But I knew I was missing that practical aspect because I hadn't had proper feedback from people who had that same level of experience as our professors do to tell you, hey, if you raise that light a little bit, the shadow on their face will look a little better, or that kind of thing.
So I was going to save this for rapid fire, but since we're kind of on the topic, what would you going into senior year tell yourself going into freshman year about kind of what you learned from then to now?
So we had that PA requirement our freshman year where you had to PA on one junior or senior film, and I showed up to PA one senior film. And what I would tell myself is get on set every single time you can. Anytime you have an opportunity, be there. Anytime you have an opportunity to edit video, do it. Like the only reason you should be not doing those things is if you have something else you absolutely have to be doing, like work, or if you have another film set to be on. That's pretty much the two reasons not to be on set.
I think that is such a crucial and valid point, and I think you do a way better job of kind of putting yourself out there and take advantage of that stuff. And that's something that really doesn't get pushed enough, where you kind of have to be your own advocate. Teachers aren't going to set up you being on set. People aren't going to introduce themselves to you. You kind of have to be proactive. And yes, we're learning the skills, but the only way you apply those skills is actually using them on set. So that is a great point, and I heed that advice truly.
Yeah, I think all of the mistakes that we've made, there's no way that we could have been taught not to do them. Like our professors could have said, pay attention to your backgrounds, pay attention to the t-shirt at that art supply store. If
Well,
Jim
they
had said
did.
that,
Yeah.
we still wouldn't have done it. Like it was something you had to do and make that mistake before you could kind of learn the lesson.
So do you have anything in store for this year? Is there a paper clips too? Are you working on something else? Do you like to do the comedy stuff?
I really love comedy, but I'm kind of taking a sidestep this year from working on a project that's mine to help one of Jimmy and I's buddies, a guy named Chris Gonzalez. So here's his shout out for the
Shout
day.
out to Chris Gonzalez.
Shout out, Chris.
He's directing a film called Invoking a Saint that's all about his Cuban heritage, some religious rituals.
Santeria.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gonna
it's
cut some
super
chickens' heads
awesome.
off?
Well, we are. We got to find a chicken.
Yeah, we got to figure out the practicals of that. So my goal with that is kind of to help bring that organization, that togetherness to the team, because Chris is a very out there, metaphorical, poetic kind of guy. So I want to come kind of help in some ways be a second director to kind of bring our team together.
Have you seen any of the stuff for it yet? Is there groundwork been laid? Have you done any Santeria ceremonies or anything?
I haven't done any ceremonies personally, but last week we met up and he showed me all these pictures, took me through his entire research document, which Chris is a really good research guy, and he had probably 30 pages that we went through, just explaining character names and what's happening in each scene. And we've been working together on the rewrite process as he goes into his fourth draft here. So it's been coming together.
Is it like fiction or is it loosely based on some real life stuff?
It's a little bit of kind of like paper clips. It's embellished, but it's Chris's life.
Names
So
are changed to protect the innocent.
the supernatural events in the story are fictionalized, but everything that happens to the character is something that actually in some level happened to Chris, although not exactly the way it happened in the story.
Have you done any research on Santeria?
Oh yeah, I've been looking into the it's particularly the way that it's kind of fused with like the fusion of the African and Catholic elements together, and how that worked, because what Chris told me is that his film is kind of representing the internal conflict of a character kind of trying to fuse their culture with American culture. And so that element kind of parallels what the story is actually about. So I've been diving really deep into that.
It's kind of like voodoo and Catholicism, like wrapped into one in a way, isn't it? In some
Yeah,
ways.
depends
Yeah,
what
there's a
side.
bunch of these tribal gods that the saints, some of them had similar stories because mythology has similar stories across the world. So what they've done, uh, my understanding is the natives did this as a way to continue practicing their beliefs while at the same time appeasing the Catholics who kind of had come invaded the area, or the Catholics who had taken them from Africa as slaves, whatever it might have been. What they did was they continued practicing their beliefs, but under the Catholic names. So instead of their tribal god, they would use a saint and they would pray to that saint, but they would use the ritual that came from their cultural heritage. So it was kind of that was where that fusion came from.
Cool. Isn't that what in Major League? Isn't that what
Yeah, yeah,
the one guy's
yeah.
what the
Oh,
heck was his
dude.
name? I just had it on the tip
Yeah,
of my
dude.
tongue. Serrano, Pedro
Yeah,
Serrano.
there you go. He had the little troll doll,
Yeah.
and he would put the snake. He had the snake. Yeah, I'm looking
Jobu.
I'm looking forward to working on it and kind of us doing some different roles that aren't for each other. Right, we're working with someone else, kind of using our skills to kind of put it out there. What? So you said it right. Your goal going into next year is kind of help bring Chris's vision into some cohesion and put it out as clean as possible. So, what are some of the things you plan on doing or you're doing now that
Uh,
you haven't spoke on?
so some of this you don't even know about. I've been kind of working to help because Chris doesn't have as big a network as you and I do within the film school.
As you
So,
do.
okay, as I do.
you're,
But
you're on the call with my network right now, dog.
fair enough. But I've been trying to reach out and kind of fill positions for him prior to going into senior year, because what I want to do is kind of help bring the team to the same page now, rather than we show up in the fall and then people start reading the script and doing their work. I don't expect, especially like if you're an assistant camera or a grip or a PA or something, a lot of times those people never read the script, but just having them signed on now will help make the project a priority for them.
How's that going? What are been some of the pitfalls, or have you been just lining people up?
For the most part, the lead roles have been easy. Chris also helped find a few people like you, Jimmy, and our DP. But there's been like there's some makeup that's going to be required in the film, and there's really only two people in our major who do makeup. So trying to help you out and get somebody in there for that.
Going into Double Ripple and I guess, last year it was all about simple, right? And you kind of said this. It was no risk. Let's, paint by numbers. And then Double Ripple was taking some risk. And you were into the mud flood before I was, because when Rich brought it up to me, you had already known about it, and kind of you two were kind of geeking out. And full circle, I've gone full Robert Downey, and you two are kind of backed off on that stuff and aren't as deep. And I'm the one talking to Isaac and Andrea, so I'm full tinfoil at this point. What were your thoughts on how it came out? You were there since day one. You were in the trenches with me. You kind of saw the visions of grandeur. How did it play out to you? What are your thoughts on Double Ripple and how everything came to be?
I think as far as like accomplishing what we set out to accomplish, we did that 150%. Like we went past kind of at least my idea of what we are going to get. Like I felt at points that one scene was going to have to be cut, or there were effects that were going to be impossible and we might have to cut this, or whatever it might be, and that we wouldn't achieve everything that we intended to. But we did get that whole script into that film and under 10 minutes. Good, good stuff there, Jim. But from that, we also were missing, like, I think our effects, we should have planned them ahead of time a little bit more and shot with the exact effects we were going to do in mind. Like, I think that's a part of pre-production that our professor just didn't know that we would need to do because he's never had to think about that before.
Yeah, I think that it's so funny you say that because I was thinking about that today and, doing some writing right now and thinking about, hey, maybe you should start looking at the effects before you actually write it so you can see what you can do and how you need to write it out. So that is a really good point you mentioned. I also think that I sent you that review that I paid $30 kind of submit the film and they gave me a review and it was honest, right? It was pretty it was honest and it was one of those things like with advice from you I had to like take a day or two to kind of let it process, but I think that stuff is crucial. I also think with not knowing the context of the film and what we went through, it's like yeah, it is a 3.2 film, right? But I think knowing what you said and everything we went through, yeah, we knocked it out of the park and did all that stuff. So it's just good to get that feedback and kind of have some of those ideas in your head.
Well, and you have to remember, like, as far as our experience, we have 3 years experience and really only 2 films, maybe you could say three for me, under our belt at this point, or I guess 4 and 3. But that with that, like getting a 3.2 on your short film out of 5, not in something that's student films, it's just short films in general, that is nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, I need you to tell me that. How's your like mindset? You say that it's nothing to scoff at, and I'm a little bit more sensitive when it comes to feedback. How are you when it comes to feedback for your work? And maybe you heard some good or bad things on paperclip or double ripple. How do you kind of take that, and how do you use that in your editing process?
I think, to be honest, we had beaten that horse so much by the time we got to really showing it to people for both of those films that I knew more bad things to say than anyone else could possibly have to say. So as a result, what I mostly got coming from people, I might have heard their constructive criticisms, but what I mostly heard was like, hey, that film made me laugh, or that film put a smile on my face, or that film was based in epic. That was my favorite thing I heard about Double Ripple. Those were the things that stuck with me because that was the what I wasn't, I guess, expecting. Like I knew all of those constructive criticisms were gonna, maybe not whether someone was gonna say them to me, but I knew that they could be made.
Were you surprised by how it was received at the end of the year?
I was a little bit surprised by how many laughs Paperclips got. I thought more of them would fall flat because even the best comedians, it's usually 80-90% of your jokes that hit. I think I hit about 70 from what I remember at Cinefest, which I feel is more than I ever could have asked for. And then with Double Ripple, I was surprised by certain people's reaction. I knew the general reaction was going to be kind of what it was. Some people being like, this is the silliest thing I've ever seen. This is hilarious. Some people going, this is awesome. Others like, what the heck did I just watch? But what shocked me was to see some people who I thought were going to hate it for more political reasons or like friendship reasons that didn't.
And I heard you were trolling people all semester too, weren't you?
Oh my gosh, dude, he got it over. My man's a pro wrestler. He got his
Yeah.
working boots on.
So one of our classmates has a film that he has never finished and refused to like show any cuts during class, or he made sure it played at the end of Cinefest one year, like late at night, so that no one would see it. And as a result, that's been his marketing strategy. Everyone's like, when can I see this film? When can I see it? Where is it? Because they haven't seen anything from it. And for all we know, it could be trash, but there's so much curiosity about it that that's his marketing. And Jimmy one day when we were talking about this had the idea of like, what if we told everyone Double Ripple wasn't going to get made? So I started doing that, just
I
telling
didn't know.
everyone
I
that
didn't put my stamp of approval on that, by the way.
no,
He just ran with it.
no, Jimmy like threw it out there and I was like, okay, I'm doing it. Because I thought it was hilarious. And all semester, we got like our crew was talking bad about that. Like, hey, we put all this work in. You got to finish it. This is stupid. And other people were like, wow, we can't believe Jimmy would quit, because Jimmy wouldn't quit. And then when the film is slated to actually show at Cinefest, everybody's like, what the heck? This is awesome. And then Double Ripple comes on the screen, and there's the loudest cheer of any night of Cinefest.
Really?
Yeah, it was before any of the film played, just the title.
My man did his job as a
Hype man.
producer, and he didn't even spend a dime. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
That's awesome.
So you said that you kind of got a little bit better feedback or what you expected going into Cinefex on the reaction. And I know that you worked hard and you submitted both our films and LSD from last year to a bunch of festivals. What are your goals and what do you kind of expect or hope to get from submitting it to festivals and possibly getting accepted to festivals?
I hope that any that don't accept us give us notes like you had gotten from that page. Just kind of, even if it's one sentence, just telling us, hey, this is why we didn't accept your film or whatever. But more importantly, I'd like to have just kind of exposure to people who are outside of our film school and kind of an excuse to go to film festivals around the country. And whether they're prestigious or big, like that would be awesome if we got into somewhere like Toronto, which we did submit to, or the Denver Film Fest even is kind of one of the bigger ones that we submitted to. So it would be really cool to get in there. But more importantly, I'd like to get connected to the film community outside of our school, because I think that's the place where our school kind of lacks the most, is in connecting us to filmmakers who are actually out there doing work.
Do you think that's because of the location of the school, or just?
I think it's partly because we're in Denver, but I also think it's just been an oversight because the program is so focused on like getting everyone broad exposure to all of the roles. And then there's also a lot of our professors kind of use the program as a way to get people to work on their films for experience, which means that you're kind of getting connected to the same people that you're connected with this from the school. So you're only making those small connections. It's a lot harder to get into even the Denver film industry from just school, and you kind of have to search that out yourself.
I think you have a valid point about the microcosm of film school. You stated all the good things, all the things we've learned, a little bit of variety of all the different roles. I think you make a valid point, and I agree with the downfall of you're in that microcosm. You're only getting feedback from the same people all the time. So that is one thing that I definitely think they could improve on. That said, what is your overall kind of take on the film program? Would you be suggesting it to people going forward? What are your maybe suggestions? You just said, maybe broader exposure. Anything else that you would kind of put on a FCQ or whatever it is at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think as far as would I recommend it, if somebody wants to go into kind of the lead roles, anything from director to editor to DP, all of those kind of positions, that above the line's the term in the industry, I would totally recommend this program because the broad exposure, while that sounds like, oh, I have to do a bunch of classes of things I'm not interested in, it really gives you the knowledge base you need to understand your own job better and to communicate with people better. So I think that's just one of the strong points, and I would recommend that to anyone. But as far as like stuff to put on the FCQs for preparation, I think like that connection outside of the industry, obviously, and I also think that there's a lot of occasions where we don't get as hands-on during class. Like for lighting, grip, and sound, we had groups of 4 people when we were going out with a recorder. It is really hard if you're not fighting to get the recorder in your hands to actually learn how to use all those buttons. Or if you're setting up the lights and you're the actor that day because they need someone to stand there, you're not learning how to set up lights, you're just standing there. And while you need someone to do that, I think that a lot of our classes have a little too much of that just kind of being there while somebody else gets to toy with the equipment.
Yeah, that is interesting to kind of ponder how you do that better. Is it smaller classes, more class options? That is interesting. I know you said that you would suggest the program to anyone who wanted to get that diverse experience in all those fields? Knowing what you know, would you go somewhere that was more editing based, or like you said, you think it's important to have a broad base of understanding all those subjects?
I think the reason I'm going to school is to have that broad base. Because if I wanted to do editing, what I would have done is go get an overnight job at 9 News or somewhere where I'm just doing ingestive footage and then hope that the managers are like, hey, this guy's good at that. Let's let him do a little bit more playful stuff and kind of work my way into an actual position. And I could have skipped school if my only goal was to just learn how to push the buttons and how to make the industry happy. Whereas I think film school has really given me the tools to be a creative person and to have a broader knowledge base than somebody who's just focused on, I want to be an editor and that's all they want to do.
So you mentioned, you like comedies. That's what you got the inspiration from. Was there any specific types of comedies that you enjoy more than others?
Better Off Dead. It's his favorite movie.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's definitely my favorite film.
That's when we became BFFs.
Wow.
When he told me that, I was like, oh,
that was day one.
yeah. This kid sucks.
That's a throwback. That's like you're pulling on my heartstrings right now, dog.
What else though? What else do you vibe with? What other comedies?
I love like The Orville. I know you two haven't seen that, but it's kind of a more comedy version of Star Trek that
Yeah, I won't see
is
that.
pretty awesome. I'm trying to think
Is that
what
new
else.
or is that an old one too?
Oh, that one's new. It's Seth MacFarlane, who I am not huge fan of, but I love him in this series.
That's a Family Guy dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is he acting in it?
Yeah, he's one of the leads, but he's a different character than he usually plays.
Okay.
Honestly, you might be able to vibe with the show because although it's a sci-fi, it's really this exploration of kind of the relationship of divorce. That's kind of the main theme throughout the whole thing.
Is it animated or is it actual acting?
Oh, it's actual acting.
Okay.
There's a lot of CGI though.
Okay. You get down with South Park?
Yeah,
Casa Bonita, dog. It's in his film.
that's the whole reason Casa Bonita's in there is when I realized we were next door to that and I had written a burrito into the script. I was like, that this is some kind of coincidence, a synchronicity from just nowhere. So I had to go with it.
Had you ever been there before that?
I have not actually. I've never eaten there, but I hear the food is terrible, and the only reason to go is for the experience.
Yeah, I've heard it's very cafeteria-esque Mexican food, but it's because of the theatrics that go on and the gorilla running around and the cowboys shooting at each other and the cliff jumping and all that stuff.
2 words: tourist trap.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's even funnier just knowing the location now, right? Because I heard about Casa Bonita and live in Jersey. I saw the episode, but it's a shopping center in Lakewood, right? Or like, is that Lakewood? Yeah,
Yeah, that's
West
Lakewood.
Colfax. It's just like reminds you of
But
something.
it wasn't like, I mean, when they first put that there back in the day, it was a totally different.
Yeah, I mean, you got the college over there and stuff, but it's just funny kind of knowing, oh, this is just in a shopping center that's kind of run down.
Well, and if I understand correctly, Casa Bonita itself is older than the rest of the shopping center. Like they built that onto it.
That's what I'm saying. It used to be like a standalone thing. It was like the hip hop happening thing to do back in the 80s or whenever they first built it. And they actually built there was one in Oklahoma. They had one in Oklahoma that might actually, it was a different name, but it was owned by the same owner. I forget what it was. I took a deep dive on Casa Bonita one time when I forget if I saw it on the Food Network or someone asked me if I'd been there. I'm like, I don't think I want to go there. And they're like, you have to go there. You're in Colorado. I'm like, I don't think so. I'd rather not have diarrhea tomorrow.
Yeah, mentioning some of the comedies you like, I think that's where we bonded initially, just because you had a vibe for some older films. I think because your mom, you kind of like some of those 80 films and stuff. So think that comes out in your work too, just comedy based. And I think that was something we kind of bonded on.
What are your top 5 favorite John Cusack films?
John Cusack. I mean, I start with Better Off Dead, and then I have to go to IMDb. I'm not gonna
How about
lie.
80s films or just top 5 comedies?
Top 5 comedies. So we got Better Off Dead. Trying to think what else.
You don't have to limit yourself to comedies. I feel like we
Okay.
just pigeonholed you.
It's hard to like rank them after that because I have a couple that are favorites that I come back to, but then most films it's just kind of like, oh, that was really good, but I never think about it again.
Do you
go
still
back.
watch
relevant.
Better Off Dead to this day? Like, would you go back and watch it, or yeah?
Yeah, that's like an every 6 months thing.
Okay.
If I'm having a bad day, a really bad day, I just go turn that film on and lay down for a while. But if we're gonna do top 5 films in general, you can put Blade Runner right after that.
The
Brazil.
original?
Yeah, the original. 2049 is good, but it's different and not my favorite. And then Brazil, which is kind of 1984 adapted into a screenplay. It's a little different. They didn't get the rights to use the name, so some stuff's changed to make that work.
You ever seen it?
The Maltese Falcon, which is an old film noir that I just absolutely love. And then, this would have been on the comedy list too. Clue,
Okay.
which is based off the board game if you haven't seen it. And there's 3 different endings, which is kind of that's a super neat concept. I love when people do stuff like that where they break this tradition of a film is one 90-minute video. And then, we're going to have 3 different endings that we can show you in the theaters. Or like the YouTuber Markiplier's been doing those choose your own adventures for, I think, 10 years almost now. He's been making these where at the end of the video, you get a choice and you click which video you want to go watch next. And I just love those kind of breaks from the traditional format.
Is that Tim Roth in Clue? Is that what that
I
guy's
think
name
so.
is? He was the guy from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I know this is a sin, but as far as film people go, I don't know actors very well.
Dude,
I don't care.
You're on you're on the call with like-minded people, dude. You know we don't sweat the technique over here.
I gave up on Hollywood a long time ago.
So easy. Before we get into rapid fire, Richie Rich, any questions you have for Eric? Eric, is there anything we didn't speak on that you feel we should speak on about paper clips or double ripple?
I guess I just wanted to say that like these films have proved to me that if you want to go make a film, all you need is like a camera and some lights, which you can get from, if you have to, use a desk lamp and a flashlight. And what you really need is people with the desire to go make it. So if you're out there and you want to go make a film and you don't want to go to film school, you don't want to go to Hollywood, you just go do it. Like make your YouTube video.
I think that is some really good advice. You only learn by doing, right?
Exactly. Plus, it's just so fun.
Have you ever seen One Crazy Summer?
I haven't.
Put that on your list.
Will do.
John Cusack.
All right.
And I would say if you haven't seen Gross Point Blank, I would add that one to your list too.
Okay.
And Being John Malkovich and High Fidelity.
Ooh, High Fidelity. Is that Kevin Smith?
No.
It's just like Jack Black's in that, right?
Yep.
That's a good one. Have you seen that one, Eric?
Nope.
I think
These are all new to me.
that. High Fidelity is like a rom-com, but it kind of has that like Kevin Smith Chasing Amy type vibe.
Okay.
I thought
think I
he
can dig
directed
that.
that. No, it was Stephen Frears.
So easy. I think I know the answer to this question, but are you a coffee drinker?
I'm not a coffee drinker, but I do love my caffeine.
How do you consume your caffeine?
I got a
Yeah,
couple of
snort
ways. No
Boof
snorting.
it.
We got the occasional Monster Energy drink, but I've kind of switched to like Riot and the Shack ones. haven't been doing Bang as much lately because the caffeine content's just way too high. Kind of like that 100 milligram, 150 range, because I found I feel a lot less jittery and weird throughout the day. And then we've also got these Grinds coffee pouches at Richie Rich's recommendation here. Love
How do you
these
like
things.
them?
They're really tasty and kind of that 50 milligram range is a nice little kick if the energy drink in the morning's not doing it for you at noon. Just one of those and you feel right back to it.
Is it a substitute?
No. It's interesting though that you don't drink coffee, but you like the coffee pouches.
Yeah, I've found that like something about these mint flavored ones, like really, as Jimmy was about to imply to, it hits a certain spot.
So have you been able to get rid of the ons, or is it kind of one of those and one of those? How's that?
One under each cheek.
Yeah, no, this is it's totally. I don't know what it is. It's kind of reprogrammed that habit, like I guess the same way as like when you see somebody who's smoking or who's quit cigarettes, who's like got their pen up at their mouth all the time, just that same physical action, like that can kind of satisfy your urges without kind of breaking, I guess.
Yeah. I found too the same thing with the for me it was kind of like a second nature, like if I was driving somewhere where I would have some like tobacco in my lip. So it was just a matter of getting out of that habit of feeling like I needed to be like spitting in a bottle while I was driving my car somewhere. And once I did that, it was it was fairly easy. I mean, it's been quite a while since I've had tobacco in that form. I find it fascinating though with like the nicotine pouches and the vape that it's almost they quote unquote those things products were designed to help people get off of tobacco and quit smoking or quit chewing, and I feel like it's almost created more users. Like I feel like it's not uncommon when I'm over at the school to see like
Oh my
every other
gosh.
kid sucking on a vape pen.
Horrible.
Because cigarettes are gross and chewing
They're
tobacco
so
is
good though.
I
gross.
love the way they smell
Dude,
though,
you look
dude.
so cool when
Yeah.
you smoke a cigarette.
But there's also that there's like those two elements, right? And the first time you use either of those is like if the first time you smoke, there's all that coughing and it just feels horrible. Whereas like these alternatives that have been created to help people quit, they're a lot cleaner. Like you can kind of, you can put a pouch in anywhere and you don't have to spit as much. Or like vaping, you can go outside and do it anywhere outside.
I mean,
Some
people do it
people
in class.
even inside, yeah. Um, and no one's gonna be like, "What is that cigarette smell?" Like it's not as socially an issue.
Is that strawberry shortcake?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah, it's more
cupcake.
pleasant. So as a result, I think that's why it's kind of appealed to people who wouldn't use nicotine otherwise.
Yeah. What's your favorite energy drink before we move on? Favorite
Uh,
brand, favorite flavor
the classic Monster is my favorite flavor. Like
with
it's
all the
horrible
sugar?
for you. Yeah, it's all sugar.
Uh,
Never drink them, but it's my favorite.
I found with whether it's the original Monster or the original Rockstar or the original Red Bull, there's something in either in that flavor profile or an ingredient in those ones particularly that always kind of gives me like some sort of like indigestion or like reflux.
Yeah, they're just so acidic. I think it might be the sugar.
So I feel like it's like if I drink a Red Bull, like I'm burping that all day, like I ate a hot dog, you know?
I feel like energy drinks in general, I almost get like GERD, where I just feel like there's something that won't digest all day.
Well, I mean, artificial sweeteners do the same thing, and anything acidic, which would be all sodas, all energy drinks, they're all acidic, whether they're the healthy natural ones or not. That's gonna just amplify your stomach acid, and you're gonna have acid reflux most likely, and if not, at least indigestion or bloating or something.
With those grinds, did you find them locally or did you order them online?
I ordered them online. Most of that kind of stuff, I'd rather just get shipped to my door, and then I get the full selection of everything they have to offer.
Right on. Did you get a subscription or anything? Did you go that
Nah,
deep?
nah, I got a
Yeah,
box.
you want to try him out first.
Right on.
He's a little bit more frugal with his spending habits
Not a
than us.
boy.
He's
Not a
smarter
boy.
I'm
Than
trying.
us. What are you talking about? Don't lump me in there.
than me. Than me. I'm just saying he's good. I was trying to give him dabs.
Do you get
Well, I
receipts when you buy
appreciate that.
stuff at the store?
I don't actually.
No, he
I
doesn't
know
buy
that's a
anything, dude.
well, that's part of it. But the other thing is, I'm always like, I'd rather check my bank account every single day than have a bunch of paperwork that I have to deal with at the end of the month.
Kids these days.
Richie Rich has a notebook, dude. Every Sunday he goes through that. He's on it.
I try to be. Eric, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of yourself?
Yeah, every morning, I give myself like 20, 30 minutes. I don't time it, but just a quiet meditation. Sometimes it's more breathwork based. Other times I'm just observing what my mind does. I've had a couple times where I've tried the more quiet mind stuff where I'm trying to let my thoughts go so that I can kind of have more silence in my head. That hasn't worked as well for me as some people who I've heard, but I think that that is one of the single greatest habits that anyone can get into. And you just have to be careful to not expect too much too fast. Because, like, if you stop having sugar, especially if you drink a lot of soda and you just stop that, you're going to see effects a week from then that are positive. If you quit smoking, you're going to see good effects in 2 days. But if you start meditation, you might see your first effects 6 months, a year down the line.
Decade.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's really hard to stick to it for that long.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
Is
no.
that something you're doing? Like, are you getting? Because I know Tim Ferriss says, do it separately from your room. So I always try to come out here and have sit on my throne and do my duty in the morning. Are you doing that right in your room when you wake up, or are you getting up, cracking an energy drink, or what's your process look like?
I give myself 10 minutes to kind of like, if I need to use the bathroom, I deal with that. Get some comfortable clothes on, but maybe not what I'm going to wear for the whole day. Um, and then I do stay in my room because I want to come to the world fresh from this rather than start my day. And I love my roommates, but like uh, this kind of has to happen prior to that for me. And I don't want to consume any food or anything except water before that either. It's kind of my reset before I start the day.
Right on. Respect.
Yeah.
How long you been doing that for?
So I tried to start this 7 years ago, like my freshman year of high school, and fell into that same trap of like, well, this hasn't done anything in a week. What am I doing? And I stopped, and I've started again a couple of times since then. My current habit of this, I guess, doing it daily has kind of been, I think, 2, 3 months that I've been consistent on that. But since college started, I don't think I've had a 3 month period where I didn't at least once a week.
Right on.
Well, congratulations on
Yeah.
that consistency, dude. That is everything. And showing up, making that happen day in, day out, that is key. You know it. So big ups to you, dude. You're way ahead of where I was at your age. So
No
just
doubt.
keep that in perspective, dude.
I didn't meditate till I was like 35.
Yeah, I didn't. I was like in my mid-20s, I think. What are you listening to right now? Music wise, audiobooks, podcast? Are you reading anything?
So as far as what I'm reading, let me just grab the book because I have it right here. I've been finishing Brett and Heather's Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century because I got about halfway through
Racist.
this book when it came out. I
Is it
got
good?
halfway through this book. Yeah, I absolutely love their perspective. This kind of bringing a biologist, specifically an evolutionary biologist lens to how to live your life, I think it's profound, and it brings a lot of insight that like you and I would not have because we're not evolutionary biologists
Is it easy reading?
for the most part. There's some sciencey terms, so if you really don't, if you're not versed in more biology type stuff, you might have to Google some things. But as far as like understanding their concepts, where they're going, I don't think anyone would have too much difficulty once you've gotten past learning what they might be talking about at a specific point. I think the job of any good teacher is to dumb things down enough that anyone can understand it, and they do a really good job of that. It's just there might be some people out there who their knowledge level is not what they wrote the book for, so they might have to bring those two just a little closer together for themselves.
When you're ripping around in your roadster, what are you jamming out to?
I'm usually jamming out to there's this British guy who makes beats. His name is Blair Muir, and I just absolutely love all of his beats. So I have those on shuffle all the time. There's a German guy called, I think it's Klaus with two A's. Absolutely been loving his stuff lately. Jimmy heard a couple of songs from him right at the end of the semester, and both of them he was like, "That is a California beach vibe right there."
Yeah, Richie Rich and Eric could definitely ride in the car together and vibe out to some house music for sure.
What was the first one you said? Blair what?
Blair Muir, Muir.
Is it Blair?
Yeah, he's only on YouTube because he sells his beats from there, so that like weird British rappers can rap on top of it. But I love just the beat by itself. He puts like sample vocals on it that are usually better than anything anyone else puts on it.
All right, I'll check it out. You have any podcasts you get down with?
So I've actually, speaking of Heather and Brett, there was a podcast that I got into recently called Decoding the Gurus, which is kind of a critique podcast of someone like the Jordan Peterson, Brett Weinstein, all these people who I had listened to and kind of gleaned all these useful bits of information. So I think a healthy dose of somebody criticizing their ideas is also something great to have. And I've been loving that podcast.
How is it, a long format or is it fairly? What's
Yeah,
the
it's
time
like
domain?
an hour to 2.5 hours usually. They'll go through like 30 seconds of material because they spend so much time dissecting things from like the exact words that are being used and how that would affect the audience to like really breaking down the ideas. And they're also just hilarious the whole time. There's one of the guys makes some pretty obvious jokes a lot of the time, and occasionally the other guy on the podcast will tell him, "There's that great Scottish wit again, as precise as a sledgehammer." And I absolutely love that.
Decoding Gurus, you said it's called?
Yeah, Decoding the Gurus. It's on Spotify. I know.
Did they do Joe Rogan?
I think they have once or twice. You might not like those episodes as much.
Richie
I
Rich is
find
pretty critical on Joe Rogan.
okay. I
Yeah.
find I disagree with some of the things they have to say, but they're uh, they're good faith actors, just like I think all
Are
of
they
the people they're.
skeptics?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are skeptics. I would say just like all the people they're criticizing, I think they tend to listen to ideas really well and try and give people as much credit as they can have. They just they're more left and they're more mainstream than I guess any of us in this conversation are, probably by far.
Do you have one particular episode that you would recommend for someone who wanted to check it out?
Oh yeah, the Eric Weinstein, the first episode about him is hilarious because they kind of go into his theory of everything and kind of poke fun at that. I
Okay.
think I'm not enough of a physicist to really understand that. I actually have his paper printed off on my shelf here, but trying to read it, I couldn't make sense of it. So it's weird to hear kind of two different sides of an argument where I don't understand enough to know who's right.
Welcome to my world, dog.
Yeah, that's every day.
Yeah.
Eric, last but certainly not least, not necessarily that you have full faith in anything or believe in anything wholeheartedly, but is there one particular one that you fancy more than another, that you like to research more than another? Do you have a favorite conspiracy theory?
It's been the mud flood ever since I heard about it. Like looking into all these pictures of buildings where there's like the underground windows, or seeing them around Denver, in like just the strange way that old buildings are constructed, new buildings that are built in that same style, how that's different. It's really interesting. And I never would have gotten into architecture if it weren't for like that. There was this show I watched. I forget what the name of it was, but it was British, and they brought archaeologists in and dug up a section of an old, I think, government building, where they could find the walls underground for a room that was no longer part of the building. And I was like, that's really, really strange. Why is there a room that's not part of this building anymore? And then as I started looking into that, I see all these different places where there's buildings that have stuff that's old, that's not attached, or it's like a basement that no one knows is there. And that's just so wild to me. I love it.
Do you have any personal thoughts or theories as to maybe when it occurred or what caused it?
I have no idea. I'm not even sure it's there. It's just something I love to speculate on. But my guess would be, if it actually happened, would be like 1860s, and probably some sort of supernatural cause.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's that it was in 1858 or 1859, that like electrical event that caused all the radio outages. The Barrington event, I think it's called.
I think that's
Um,
right. Yeah.
and but then before that, you had the Tecumseh comet in 1811 to 1812. And then there was also the New Madrid earthquakes that caused the Mississippi River to flow backwards. So I'm wondering if there's like a connection, and maybe there was multiple events over this time period that caused, whether it's liquefaction or just flooding in general, um, around the world, or specifically here. I also find it fascinating too, with like how all the Capitol buildings are very, many of them. I mean, there's a few that are not, but a good majority of the Capitol buildings around the United States are built in the same structure. And yeah, you see the photos where it's like, well, if they built these amazing buildings, why didn't they make the infrastructure to have the roads, to get all the equipment and everything to these facilities to build these things? It's I find it fascinating too. I love the architecture aspect of it. You the
Eric,
man, dog.
yeah, dude. Thanks for your time. Thanks
It's good
for
seeing you.
yeah, good
Yeah.
seeing
It's
you.
good to see you too.
We gotta catch up sooner than later when we have a day off. Love you, dog. Thanks for giving us some of your time to
Yeah.
promote the films, and thanks for being you, homie.
Yeah. It's not very often you get to have a conversation with your friends and call it work.
That's the goal in life, dog. Don't work too hard.
I won't. You two take
All right,
care.
brother.
Have a
Later,
good night.
bud.
Thank you.